SBF Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, was just denied a $250,000 bail. He was declared a high risk to flee. SBF will go to the Bahamas' only prison, Fox Hill, as he awaits extradition. Fox Hill is known for its brutal conditions. Inmate suicide is not uncommon. So we have major updates from the SBF story. We have footage from him at the courthouse in the Bahamas, and we also had the Congress hearing earlier today, which revealed a lot of shocking facts about FTX. So in today's show, I want to break down exactly what is happening with the SBF case and break down some of the shocking facts that we got today, and also look through exactly what went down at the courthouse, what Sam's arguments were, and what ended up happening, which obviously resulted in him being denied a $250,000 bail. The saga keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper for the FTX story, and I'm going to be here first to break down the news for you every single day. So let's get into it. SBF was officially arrested yesterday by Bahamian authorities. We saw the Attorney General of the Bahamas put out a statement announcing the arrest by the Bahamas police force of Sam Bankman-Fried following receipt of a formal notification from the United States that it filed criminal charges against SBF and is likely to request his extradition. So all this came off the back of the US filing criminal charges. We saw that earlier this evening after they arrested Sam Bankman-Fried at the request of the US government. They expected to unseal the indictment in the morning. They said they have more to say at that time. Then obviously we got the congressional hearing after. So this is the US Attorney of the Southern District of New York saying that they officially did file an indictment on the US's behalf for Sam Bankman-Fried. Dave Portnoy said, wait, does this SBF arrest mean he suddenly doesn't have to testify tomorrow? Because if that's true, that's shady as F. And this is definitely one of the biggest question marks around SBF's arrest. The fact that he was supposed to testify in front of US Congress tomorrow, or in this case today. And what ended up happening is the US Congress ended up meeting without him, and he did not appear because he appeared in court instead and has not officially testified at Congress. He was supposed to testify via remote, but he ended up not testifying. So that was one of the shady aspects. And Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who was one of the main advocates of SBF being disciplined, said that she was surprised to hear that Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas at the discretion of the United States Attorney for New York. It's about time the process to bring Mr. Bankman-Fried to justice has begun. However, as the public knows, my staff and I have been working diligently for the past month to secure Mr. Bankman-Fried's testimony before our committee tomorrow morning. So there were many question marks. Why would they arrest him the day before he was supposed to speak at Congress, when potentially some of the stuff that he said, some of his testimony could have been used against him or could have been used to bolster the case? So although Mr. Bankman-Fried must be held accountable, the American public deserves to hear directly from him about the actions that have harmed over 1 million people and wiped out the hard-earned life savings of so many, and honestly have affected an industry as a whole. So that was one of the major question marks. Why did they arrest him? It's still something that we don't have an answer to. However, I do think there were some figures in the United States that were desperate to see him arrested. There's also speculation whether this was purposefully orchestrated in order for him to get out of testimony, but his testimony did leak. So we did get exactly what he was going to say in that testimony, and I'm going to run through that in a second either way, but he just didn't get a chance to formally announce it in front of Congress like he was planning to yesterday. So SBF was officially charged. Now, he was charged with a lot of charges. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud on customers by the Southern District of New York, wire fraud on customers, conspiracy to commit wire fraud on lenders, conspiracy to commit commodities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy to defraud the United States and violate the campaign finance laws. The SEC is charging him with fraud in the offer of sale of securities, fraud in connection with the purchase of sale of securities. The CFTC is charging him with fraud and misstatements and omissions. So a lot of charges to SBF. And honestly, this case, this is going to last a while, guys. This case is going to be a very drawn out process. There is a lot for the US to actually unpack here. They obviously have very good tools, though. They have very good forensic tools to be able to break down and unencrypt data and find out exactly what went down. But that is going to be a long process. Now, it only makes sense, in my opinion, that this has been a process that they've been eyeing for the last few months. I doubt they would have gotten all these charges together just over the last month since FTX collapsed. In my opinion, this is probably something that they've been watching closely for a matter of time now, and have been, I guess, building up a case against him, and have now officially arrested him, and that's why the delay ended up taking place. But this is going to take a long time because these are a lot of charges, and there is a lot to be battled out in front of court with all of this ongoing. But we can actually look at some of the projected sentences for how long SBF could land up in jail here. Now, if we take each different crime into account and look at the potential years he's looking at more than life in prison, because wire fraud is up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, that's another $250,000 fine and another 20 years in prison. Securities fraud, that's another 20 years in prison, 3 years supervised, $5 million fine, and a disgorgement of profits. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, it's another 5 years. Money laundering, another 20 years. Orchestrating a scheme to defraud investors, this can be a max sentence penalty, but in the past we've seen it come under 7 years. So if we add up all these, then he could be looking at around 85 years of jail time. Now, as a younger person in their late 20s or early 30s, I guess you could consider they might be a little bit lenient on the total amount of years they give him, because potentially he only gets like 30, 40 years, maybe even 20 years if he reveals some more information about the inside workings of FTX. If that leads to the arrest of other members of FTX, that potentially gets it down even further. Hard to imagine that a 30-year-old goes to jail for 85 years, but that is what he's looking at. And I do think we do need justice. Clearly, it was a massive crime. Clearly, they're going to want to make an example out of him. Typically, when we see examples being made of kind of major financial frauds, major like drug charges, we do see that they don't go too lenient. However, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and what his defense actually is. And we did see kind of the beginnings of somewhat of a defense in the Bahamas courthouse, which I'll get into in just a couple of minutes, which was very, very, very interesting. So the SEC said Sam Bankman-Fried was orchestrating a massive years-long fraud, diverting billions of dollars of the trading platform's customer funds for his own personal benefit and to help grow his crypto empire. And what's very weird about this case is it kind of looks like a RICO case. I was on a Spaces yesterday with Charles Hoskinson, and he said, this doesn't look like a normal financial crime. This is very much being approached with the mindset of this being like a full-on RICO case that usually we only see from like criminals and drug lords and other big mafia type institutions. This is like how disorganized and messy and just crazy this situation is. It's not going to look at all like a normal financial case. This is almost going to look more like a mafia case, and that's not saying that it is. Of course, they are fundamentally very different, but we're just talking about the aspect in the way it's going to have to be approached by the government here in terms of how they actually work out what crimes were and weren't committed. It's going to need deep forensics, unencryption, and some and a lot of different sly tactics to actually find out what went down, because this is how just crazy and widespread the issues were inside FTX. And we got some information on that out of Congress today. So the first thing I want to go through is the transcript that was leaked of what Sam Bankman-Fried was planning to give Congress before he was arrested. So we did get details of some of the things. We got, I think, like a 10-page run-through transcript of what he was going to tell Congress. So I'm going to break down a few of the main points that I think are pertinent. And then afterwards, we're going to go straight to Congress and look at some of the things that were said without Bankman-Fried before going to the Bahamas courthouse. So there's a lot to share with you guys in today's show, because it's just an extremely juicy saga. He said once again, as we've heard many times on his Twitter spaces, that he effed up. He said, I know that doesn't mean much to say I'm sorry. I'm dedicating as much that I can do to do right by customers. When all said and done, I'll judge myself primarily on one metric, whether I've been able to make customers whole. If I fail our customers in this regard, I failed myself. Last year, my net worth was 20 bill. Today, I would be wrong to see that I have nothing. I have a loving family, food on my plate, and that's more than life has given billions of people. basically, I went through this entire testimony. There's a few things I want to point out, but the way this reads is a little bit of blame games going on. He's very quick to blame a lot of key members, for example, Ray and his attorneys, for maybe misguiding him. And there's also a lot of kind of playing the victim in this testimony. There's a lot of kind of I'm sorry's, I messed up, like kind of playing the honest mistake card that he was playing on Twitter Spaces. So honestly, this testimony reads to me very similarly to the interviews that he's been doing, very similarly to the spaces that he's been doing, where he's kind of plucking these figures out that he can't confirm nor deny because they haven't done their full research yet and that kind of stuff. So I don't know how much you want to take from this as truth and what we think is actually abstaining from the truth, but there's a few things I want to highlight. The first thing is that he claimed that the United States entity was still fully solvent. He said this had been consistent with this through multiple interviews, despite it still being part of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy filed on November 11. He said, I wish I had not clicked on a button at DocuSign at 4:30 a.m. to file for bankruptcy, leaving some of FTX under destructive leadership. He blamed the inclusion of FTX US in Chapter 11 on John Ray III, a restructuring lawyer who assumed the role of FTX CEO after the bankruptcy filing. He said that American customers were protected at least until Mr. Ray's team took over. So Mr. Ray was the restructuring lawyer that came in, overtook FTX to oversee proceedings, and Sam was very quick many times throughout this testimony to actually blame Ray. We see an entire page basically dedicated to Ray and him blaming Ray. So next, Ray replied and said that in all his years of working as a restructuring lawyer, even when he worked under the Elron restructuring, he's never seen an utter failure of corporate controls at every level of an organization, from the lack of financial statements to a complete failure of any internal controls or governance whatsoever. So basically, he's saying this is the worst thing he's ever seen in his many, many, many years of working in the industry. And he's worked on some massive messes like Enron, and this is even worse, which is absolutely crazy for him to say. So next, he said, I have 19 pages of screenshots, this is SBF speaking now, of Sullivan, Mr. Cromwell, Mr. Miller, and others I believe were influenced by them, all sent over a 2-day period, pressuring me to quickly file for Chapter 11. So a lot of this testimony essentially blames, or we can see the page here, the Chapter 11 page, blames his lawyers and the litigation lawyer for forcing him to file Chapter 11 or heavily influencing him to file Chapter 11. To me, this seems like a bit of a lack of responsibility taking, because at the end of the day, Sam's responsible for his own actions. He got himself into this mess, and he's being very quick to blame others, which I think is one of the major kind of red flags with this testimony, alongside all the victim cards that are chucked out throughout many one-liners, the I'm sorry liners, the I've lost everything lines. It's just not really needed in my opinion, but that's how he wants to play it from an optics perspective. Apart from Ray and his legal aids, SBF was also going to blame Binance CEO CZ for what he claimed. So another blame, playing the CZ blame game, for what he claimed was a month of sustained negative PR on FTX. He claimed Binance knowingly signed the letter of intent to buy out FTX, but they never intended to go through with the deal. So more charades between SBF and CZ. Shortly after, we saw that the content of the Signal chat is expected to become public in legal proceedings. I think this will be host to the most juicy information yet on this case. I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. It'll be basically crypto's version of the Twitter files. If you guys don't know what the Signal chat was, it was a chat, a group chat between many of the FTX members, literally titled Wire Fraud, which is crazy, literally titled Wire Fraud, that they were using to send secret information about operations in the lead up to the company's spectacular failure. Now, this was confirmed to be coming out in legal proceedings. However, SBF said, if this is true, I wasn't a member. I'm quite sure it's false. I've never heard of such a group, but there is evidence that it did exist. So I think we're going to get a lot more information on that in the future. And what's interesting is that they were using WhatsApp for one of their groups, which is crazy because it's not even encrypted. And if you're using disappearing chats on WhatsApp, that's just crazy because it's very easy to unencrypt. So potentially the government can unencrypt that, and that stuff I'm sure will be leaked, and that'll give us a lot more clarity as to how deceiving this situation actually was. But Sam's not the first one. Sam's certainly not the first one of an entire gluttony, a massive list of FTX insiders that were involved. The SDNY US attorney said they are not done charging other individuals. And I'd be very worried if I was a major CEO or individual at FTX, because I would be shaking in my boots right now with SBF arrested. We all know that they're going to be next. So I don't think it's done. We have multiple other members of FTX hiding in different countries. So now let's go to the congressional hearing and let's look at some of the stuff that was said by the US government on the day that Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to appear but didn't because he got arrested. There was a few very interesting statements here. The first one was Sherman saying that Sam Bankman-Fried, or should I say inmate 14379. So basically he was making a joke that Sam Bankman-Fried was an inmate. On documenting Bitcoin, it said the rep, who is a congressman for Minnesota's 6th district, said, understand of Sam Bankman's con for what it is, a failure of centralization, business ethics, and a crime, not a failure of technology. Crypto reflects American values the same way the internet does. And I 100% agree. And I'm actually very thankful Tom Emmer took this approach. He actually took the chat approach on this, because we all know by now that the issue with FTX was not a crypto-specific issue. This was a widespread issue to do with fraud on a mass scale that had nothing to do with the crypto technology and had everything to do with the people behind it. So I'm very glad that a representative in front of Congress admitted this and kind of at least did their best attempt at clearing crypto's name, because it works very, very, very differently when you have widespread fraud to crypto-specific fraud. So he says decentralization is the point, and that's the point I've been making over the last few weeks. CEO John Ray explained in front of Congress how FTX is worse than Enron. He said they use QuickBooks. If you don't know what QuickBooks is, it's like an online accounting software that basically very small business owners and e-commerce stores use. The multi-billion-dollar company used QuickBooks. I think that just sums up how disorganized FTX actually was. It's absolutely crazy. Like, for example, I use QuickBooks. So the fact that FTX was using QuickBooks is absolutely mind-blowing to me. That was one of the most shocking parts of this Congress hearing. Representative Warren Davidson, who's Ohio's 8th district in Congress, said the only real safeguard an individual consumer had was the hope they could be one of the lucky people to take position and self-custody their own Bitcoin. So very good that crypto had some real representation in front of Congress here, with Tom Emmer and Warren Davidson both speaking out about the benefits of decentralization and advocating for crypto here, and helping Congress understand that it wasn't a crypto-specific problem. Very important to have representation. Now, there are a couple of your favorite CT influencers which are absolutely shaking in their boots right now. One of them is maybe Algod. I say maybe because it's alleged that he did this. It's not official. It's alleged that apparently they're going to go after everyone that got to withdraw money using a Bahamian KYC. If you don't know what happened, there was a lot of rich people with millions of dollars stuck in FTX when they realized that the Bahamas were still processing transactions. If they were a US resident, and a lot of them faked Bahamas identities and got other people in the Bahamas and paid them off to KYC for them. There was rumors based on a screenshot that Algod was one of these guys. He's a big Twitter figure if you don't know who he is. And apparently they've got a list of 1,500 people for around $100 million that they're going to come after. So I'd be very, very, very extremely concerned if I was one of the people that were on the list for a Bahamian KYC, because they could potentially be coming after by the US government now. So let's skip to the courthouse with SBF in the Bahamas and look at actually what happened with him trying to get out, trying to get bail essentially, and apply for house arrest. So let's go through what happened in the Bahamas. We've gone through what happened in the US, and this is pretty crazy. So what happened in the beginning was Sam was supposed to enter through one side of the door. He entered through the other side of the door, and there was like a huge media rush, a very messy media rush. I'll play the video right now to kind of capture him appearing. So it looks very disorganized, but essentially he entered from the side and entered the courthouse before he faced his charges at the magistrate's court. And he's also facing extradition. He was wearing a blue suit and he wasn't fidgeting much, according to the Bahamas News TV. And the fact we couldn't see him in the first video, which was live in the Bahamas, a lot of people were saying, well, is SBF even there? Or is he using a body double? Is this all just faked? One big conspiracy. But we did see pictures of him actually inside the courthouse. And it was very weird because during the proceedings at the Bahamas Magistrates Court, his mother was audibly laughing several times when her son was referred to as a fugitive. So apparently his mum was just cracking up in laughter, which is absolutely insane to me that you'd be laughing when your son is facing potentially 85 years in jail for some of the most severe financial crimes in history. You're laughing when he's called a fugitive. I mean, maybe this just shows how in denial the entire family is. That's absolutely bizarre. And then what they were doing was essentially pleading for house arrest. So if they were granted bail, he wanted to be arrested in his $40 million Albany mansion that he probably never left anyway. So that completely makes sense why he'd want to be arrested there. So he gets his indoor pool and his gym and his jacuzzi and his room with his board games. We all know how he likes his board games. And of course, his League of Legends and his internet connection, because how could he go a day without League? So they did want house arrest if he was granted bail. But their argument for this was he suffered from depression, insomnia, ADHD for over a decade. And according to his attorney, these were the reasons why they were asking for him to be let on a bail. They don't think he's fit to be in jail at such a stressful time like this. But he was denied because he was a major flight risk. And given the rumors that he was fleeing to Argentina, given his ties internationally, given just how much, I guess, power and influence this guy has, it makes 100% sense why they denied him bail, because he's a major, major, major flight risk. So what is happening now with SBF is he's going to a Bahamas-only prison called Fox Hill. It's the only prison in the Bahamas. He's awaiting extradition. What this means is he is likely to be extradited to the US, but as of now, until February 8th, he is staying in Fox Hill in the Bahamas. And I think I've got the official date on this. Yes, he's staying at the Department of Corrections until February 8th, according to Reuters, before potential extradition. We do have footage of him, though, leaving the courthouse, just so we actually know it's SBF. We can see the footage here. The live footage that was taken, we see SBF in handcuffs behind a car being escorted out, obviously wearing a blue suit. So it's official. SBF is arrested. We can see we could see this officially for the first time, a video of him in handcuffs, officially in custody, about to enter. He's being ushered into a police car. So it's official. SBF is arrested. I didn't think this day would come. If you asked me a week ago, I definitely thought there was a weird agenda being played with all these media appearances. I thought maybe you'd tipped off some officials, but it ends up being that, well, we don't know quite yet because proceedings haven't taken place and they could take a while, but it ends up looking like justice is definitely on the cards here for SBF. So that is my update of the situation so far, but a lot more happened in crypto overnight. Apart from the SBF stuff, honestly, my head's spinning because so much happened yesterday. We had the Binance FUD, which was all over our feeds. There's a lot of FUD about Binance. Obviously, they had $2 million worth of withdrawals in a day. Their most withdrawals since the FTX saga in November. So that's pretty crazy. Although, in my opinion, given the fact they have over 50 wallets with $60 billion in it cold, I don't think a bank run would be successful unless it was like exceeding the 60 billion mark, which in my opinion is almost impossible. So I'm not worried about a Binance bank run at all, by the way, guys. But there was a lot of FUD, so that obviously took up a lot of screen time. And then what also took up a lot of screen time was CPI. And that's what I want to talk about now, because that is the most relevant thing to all of us right now. It's the CPI data that came in. As you guys know, CPI was extremely favorable. So we got a 7.1% actual CPI versus a 7.3% forecasted CPI. So CPI came in under the forecast for year on year, which means that inflation year on year is trending downwards. And since it came in below expectations, many of the banks expected a 7.2%, even 7.1% was quite a bullish outcome for equities, because it means that inflation's trending down, and this increased the probability of the Fed slowing the rate hikes to 50 BPS to a 90% probability today. So we do have FOMC today, which is a major day because the language that Jerome Powell uses today will go a long way to dictating whether this is just a fake out or whether this can be a sustained rally and we can break past this 18K region, which is very, very key. But the language Jerome Powell uses today is extremely, extremely crucial. We also saw month on month, which is, in my opinion, almost more important because that shows the most recent trend of where inflation's heading. That was 3 0.1% month on month instead of 0.3% month on month. So that also came in lower, which was a good outcome. So what I want to do now, just for a couple of minutes, is go through the charts, give you guys my outlook in terms of what I'm seeing, and then also run through kind of my trading plan. So what I'm seeing with Bitcoin is we've successfully broken out of two major levels. The main level being the top of the 17,300 range that we've been shorting for the past few days and making good money on. So we shorted here and we shorted here again, made good money. If you did long the bottom of the range, that was also a very good trade. I longed that over the weekend. Sorry, guys. So I didn't have time to share it with you guys. But trading this range was very successful. And I said on yesterday's show, if you guys watched that, I'd be trading FOMC based on a breakout to the upside or a breakout to the downside if the data's bad. And we did get a perfect breakout to the upside. We had a partial retest, and then we had the break to the upside. And this all also looks like a bull flag is starting to form now. So what I'm waiting for in terms of longing, because right now it doesn't really look like I'd be interested in shorting this market. I just think the risk reward shit on a short right now. I'd be looking at longing from the 17.3 level. That would be a really good place to long if we can flip that major previous resistance into support and retest again. Or if we just continue maintaining the current steam, I'd like to see a retest of the 17.6 region at the very least. But I'm not going to be trading pre of FOMC. So I'm interested in longing, but I just wouldn't long right now because we're kind of in no man's land. Our next key level is at 18.6, but we can also come back down and test 17.3. So we're kind of in no man's land until we get a clean retest. So I am waiting for FOMC because the language used there will determine whether we can get that massive push to the upside. Ethereum right now is the one leading the market though. And its strength on the ETH BTC chart shows us that if we're trading, we want to be trading the Ethereum long and the Bitcoin short. I actually wouldn't be longing Bitcoin. I've been longing some of the alts and primarily Ethereum. But on Ethereum's chart, it becomes even clearer than Bitcoin what the trade is. It's 1,300. A pullback to 1,300, a clean retest, then we can definitely look at this $1,400 level. So the Ethereum trade, in my opinion, makes a lot more sense. Maybe Jerome Powell comes out a bit hawkish, it drops down, it consolidates, and then maybe he says something that alludes to a slowing pace of rate hikes in Q1 next year. Maybe he hints at a 25 BPS hike. And that would be the absolute hopium for bulls to push up to the next level. So for me, risk rewards the upside. That's why I'm looking at upside targets. So if you want to trade, there's a link in the description to trade on Apex. It's a decentralized exchange. So you don't need to worry about all this exchange crap, all this exchange FUD, all the withdrawal stuff. If you trade on a decentralized exchange like Apex, you have custody of your own assets. You don't need to KYC, and they use ZK rollups to power trading. So it's a lot faster than other decentralized exchanges. It's also not Oracle-based, it's order book-based. So you have buyers and sellers on each side, and that is how they generate liquidity. It's not through the house essentially fronting you money like a GMX or a GNS would use, which I still think are good platforms to trade on. Don't get me wrong, but there are benefits to the order books, which is why I like Apex. So if you want to trade, you can do so on Apex. As I said, the Ethereum long at 1,300 with a stop underneath is probably going to be my next play. And that should line up with Jerome Powell's speech later today. So we are on the 4-hourly charts. If we kind of predict Jerome Powell speeches in 12 hours, we can see that there's probably going to be a few more candles. If we do get a wick down to that level, that could easily be 3 candle prints on the 4-hourly. So that does line up nicely time-wise for me and level-wise. So that is the long I'll be taking. If you want a long on Apex, you can actually just go into BYBIT, click trade in the top right, and you can scroll down on the BYBIT dashboard. In fact, let me actually show you how to do this real quick because, sorry, I'm on the wrong tab. I'll show you how to do this because BYBIT actually just implemented Apex into their website directly. So you go onto tools or derivatives. Yeah, derivatives. So if you're on the BYBIT website, you go derivatives, then you click DEX, and that will take you straight to Apex because Apex is an official DEX partner of the BYBIT exchange now, and they're going to integrate even further onto the BYBIT exchange as time goes on. So that is what I'm seeing in terms of the market. Running through a broader market update, so that's my trading side of things. We can see that Ethereum is still leading the pack. This was the strongest responder to the CPI news, and that's not surprising considering the Ethereum relative strength was much stronger than Bitcoin leading up to that. We did see a few other altcoins really pop out. OKX's coin performs quite strongly. Also, what else do we see? Phantom performing very strongly today, up 7.6%. Phantom's got awesome relative strength, so that's also a coin I'm looking at longing whenever I long, because the narrative's just quite strong there with the runway, with Andre back, announcements coming out over Jan, the new gas monetization program, just a lot of bullish catalysts. Surprisingly, AVAX pumped, because that hasn't been showing much strength. So finally, a due pump for AVAX, near protocol up as well. So a lot of these altcoins are performing well. But you guys know me, I don't try and time the pumps. Time the dumps. Maybe on the trading side of things I do. I'm much more interested in DCAing into the market. So if you want to copy my DCAs, I've got 2 portfolios I'm running right now. A portfolio on Polygon, which I actively manage, where we've hit gains like 13% on GNS, 10% on Chainlink. We recently just added PYR to the portfolio. You can copy that using the link in the description. It's the first link. And when we get to 105 copies, I'm going to be giving away $1,000 to 2 lucky copiers. So basically what you can do is you can DCA into these portfolios. You copy my DCAs. So I choose what to DCA into. You get prompted to copy. And essentially over time, you end up like following my portfolio basically. So this is, for me, a 6 to 12 month plan. That's why I'm going very slow. I'm still mostly in stables. You'll notice I'm 80% in stables and 70% in stables on BNB, because I'm taking it slow over time, DCAing into the market, not being too rushed, and I'm going to build up a nice portfolio over time here. So if you want to join, you can take part, link in the description, and join. And of course, I do use a little bit of my portfolio for trading. I kind of split it like 90-10 or 95-5 from the DCA long-term investing standpoint to the trading standpoint. So now I'm going on to Insta to answer any questions. I know there was a lot of SBF stuff in today's show. So instead, I want to go over some maybe altcoin stuff, answer some questions some of you might have. I know we covered a lot in today's video, so I am very interested in answering some questions. So if you have any questions, there's a link in the description to my Instagram. You can join my Instagram, where you can just search me up, Miles_Deutscher. Chuck me a follow, because I post reels every day on Binance. I posted a reel on FTX. I posted a reel on Solana, bullish versus bear case. I posted an airdrop as well that I think is quite good for 2023. So I'm posting lots of reels. So make sure you follow me over there, and also join the live stream now and ask any questions you may have. Link in the description to that. Until then, I will see you tomorrow. Probably going to be another update on the SBF case, because it keeps getting juicier and juicier as time goes on and we get more and more information. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Someone said, what's the best exchange that offers leverage? There's a few. Apex does offer leverage. They've got up to 20x leverage, so you can use that. That's a decentralized exchange. You've also got BYBIT as well as your centralized options to trade on. You've also got OKX, Bitget, and other good exchanges like that. So just take your pick based on what you value. If you value trading on a DEX, trade on Apex. If you are okay trading on a centralized exchange, trade on BYBIT or OKX or one of those other exchanges. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one or on Instagram. Peace.